Hey guys, thanks for checking out my review for The Flash. Basically, I wanted to do this review because DC has been in such a weird state recently. They're going to be rebooting all of DC, really. And also, with Marvel also on the decline, it's kind of about time for DC to finally pick up and, make some good movies. I had a lot of problems with, Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange to the Multiverse of Madness. I've said stuff before, but basically it's all just been, those movies had great platforms, everyone went to see them, and they had great stories they could have told, but they didn't tell them. They were more interested in just being like, look at this, here's a cool cameo, here's something you recognize. Across the Spider-Verse came out recently, and it's funny because I always thought they were delaying The Flash so it wouldn't come out near No Way Home, but now it's coming out right next to Across the Spider-Verse, which is honestly even worse because Across the Spider-Verse is so much better. If it had come out around No Way Home, that also would have been bad because, those are both live-action movies. This proves to me that, Marvel's going to have to start making animated movies. I think just superhero films in general look great when they're animated. I think if there's something that's very hard to do with live action, which is make these alien backgrounds and make these really intricate sets, I think you can do that. It's obviously been shown you can do that, right? Like if you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, there's a movie that actually takes creativity and actually does something with it, Like James Gunn, there's a reason he moved over to DC. He's a really great guy. He's really great, creatively. And Guardians of the Galaxy 3 has so much vision in it. Like, compare that to Ant-Man Quantumania, and there's just, such a difference. Like, Ant-Man has no originality. All the characters are very forgettable. And Ant-Man has these very distinct-looking characters and creatures, and basically there's just, you could tell there's a lot of passion with it. But let's talk about The Flash. That's the whole point of this review. I want to just go over The Flash and talk about why I didn't like it, what it could have done better, and basically how it just really felt like it was a remix of other DC films, a greatest hits album other than a movie that was good in its own right. So The Flash, faced its fair share of challenges and missed opportunities. It was the first DC film released in the summer since Wonder Woman in 2017, and because of Ezra Miller, it kind of had this problem. Because of his legal issues prior to the movie, cast a shadow over the movie. It's not like his actions were the most egregious, but it did create this awkward atmosphere and it affected the overall perception of it. So Miller's portrayal of Barry Allen in The Flash didn't quite hit the mark for me. Andy Muschietti was saying no one else can play him, but I'm like, maybe. While Barry's known for being awkward and nerdy, he should also possess this certain level of coolness and a balance between his nervousness and interactions with, his friends. Unfortunately, the film doesn't devote enough time to exploring Barry's personal life. Instead of it follows formula similar to No Way Home. I wish it gave us, more of a solid explanation for the presence of Zod as the main antagonist. Assuming that, viewers have seen Man of Steel, that's the whole point. They're like, oh, you've seen Man of Steel, you're going to get this. But the narrative feels so rushed, and it lacks depth, and it's seemingly more concerned with assembling a team of heroes to, combat Zod than focusing on the emotional core of Barry's quest to save his mother. Even the inclusion of Michael Keaton's Batman feels underwhelming. And there's, a really cool scene where they fight him, and it's clearly a guy in a stunt double with a wig on. But there's just something so disappointing about how nonchalantly he accepts the presence of the two Barrys and agrees to help them. Like, he says something like pass, and it's a joke, but then he just helps them. I just feel that this whole movie feels so programmed. Like, you're like, yup, that's coming. It never, at any point, really felt grounded in reality. The whole thing is just noise. Someone said that to me, and I kind of agree. The whole thing just feels like it's just like joke after joke, middle school humor, and then just a big battle at the end. It felt like Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, but funny. It felt like a Marvel version of Man of Steel, which is really not good because Man of Steel itself was just noise. The villainous presence of Michael Shannon's Zod and the Dark Flash are really poorly executed. Neither character is given enough screen time to establish them as a credible threat. Overall, the experience just feels bland, and the visuals are very lacking, And then if you compare it to Into the Spider-Verse, it's going to obviously look so much worse. The CGI fight scenes were, not good. And also, Ben Affleck's mouth was so distracting and jarring, and it's kind of like, Henry Cavill's mustache. I seriously was looking at Ben Affleck's mouth and I'm like, that does not look real. I think the only reason I was really paying attention to it was also because overall everything just looked shaky, but I read that he didn't film scenes in the Batsuit, so I'm like, that's not actually Ben Affleck. Let's just talk really quickly about what the movie could have done to actually make it better. I think an earlier introduction of the cameos and the hero variants would have been great. One of the major flaws of The Flash is they cram numerous heroes near the end of the film, That's a big problem. I think the cameo it ends on is actually kind of funny. I like that. I like that it ends with a "Who the fuck are you?" That was actually well timed, but the rest of it is really bad. The cameos are intended to represent different multiverses and different universes, but it feels rushed. And at the end, it doesn't serve the story effectively. Just showing them at the end where it's like, look at all this. It's like, okay, it would have been better if I thought there was a scene early on where Barry's exploring different multiverses and you get these different cameos. Just shoving it at the end in the end was exhaustingly like rote. I'm just like, okay, here they are. I really wish they had like put that in earlier because it does give you an energy. You're like, oh, here's all these characters I recognize. But the movie just its pacing was really not good, and that was one of the problems. That leads us into the second problem, which was emphasizing Zod's invasion of Man of Steel. Another significant flaw is this reliance on Zod's invasion of Man of Steel to illustrate Barry's breaking the universe. And the event is pivotal to the plot, but it's not adequately showcased in The Flash. You see, they need to dedicate more screen time to Barry's involvement during Zod's invasion. There's this scene where he tries to save a young boy, and he can't save his father, and I wish the movie had focused on that. Instead it's trying to do so much. Like, we gotta find Supergirl, we gotta, fight Zod, we gotta find Batman, like, all these jokes, and because of that, it just stretches this one plot where it's like they're trying to find Zod, but then you don't even know why they're really trying to find Zod because they just keep pointing to like a TV like, oh, Zod's coming, we gotta stop him. And I feel if they had built up more guilt, or Barry felt more of a guilt towards not saving this kid, and they didn't just cram it in this one scene, it would have had so much more of an emotional undertone. Instead, it literally is just this No Way Home thing where they're trying to find the villains, find the heroes, like where Doctor Strange says Scooby-Doo this crap. It's the same thing. And to me, it's not the same as going to a good movie and just watching a story unfold, because it's basically telling you, it's spoon-feeding you the information. It's like, here's the heroes, here's Michael Keaton's, Batman. And I really wish it had, just been more gradual. Because to me, it's undoubtedly a 5 out of 10, because you're not giving us the information as a movie. You're giving it to us as a, sort of fan service. And that's just not a movie. There's really good examples of doing it right, like Across the Spider-Verse. Everything Everywhere All at Once has mastered how you do a multiverse movie. But then there's No Way Home, Into the Multiverse of Madness, and now there's DC's The Flash, which is another just... it's just like a sizzle reel, and it doesn't effectively work, and the action is also broken. I did not like the action. It looked ugly. The CGI was really just... It's like Wonder Woman running in the 1984. It just looks bad. Another point was they don't really resolve the murder of Barry's mother. People were saying you don't need to know who did it, but I just think a big part of this feels like it's not a complete movie. It's giving you so many different situations, and it doesn't answer some of the more interesting ones, like who killed her. If you had watched the show or read the comics, you're gonna kind of know the answer. But the movie just doesn't work on its own. It's building up Batman, it's Supergirl, but then at the end of the day, it's a Flash movie, and you don't feel like that emotional core is earned enough. And that's what I didn't like. They also don't develop Dark Flash as a compelling main villain. And I think that's a huge problem. It's a very bad villain, results in a very bad third act with the CGI Coliseum where, Barry's memories are supposed to be. The whole thing just feels very superficial. I think a lot of people agreed on this, but there's a real point to you gotta have, just what happened to a good third act where there's a hero trying to save a bunch of people. What about Iris West? I was even hoping this would have a 2000s kind of vibe where, Barry had to save Iris, but he doesn't. She's just there. He doesn't even have to save... there's the metaphor of him having to save his mother, or sacrifice her, just to restore the timeline, but there isn't, this tangible moment where he has to make a choice, and it feels very real. There is kind of a thing like that where he's with all the other Barrys, and he's in this time vortex, but something about that just doesn't feel so grounded, and it took me out of it completely. It's what I'm saying. There's a simple way to just have him having somebody he cares about, throughout the movie, and it just changes. He cares about his mother, but then, there's Iris, or then there's this other Barry, and then, there's Zod, and there's Batman, and there's so much going on that it's hard to focus on that main thing. Basically, this movie needed to have that grounded core element. It Chapter 1 had this. This is sadly more like It Chapter 2. I'm referencing that because it's directed by Andy Muschietti, same director. It just feels like it's trying to do so much, and it can't really get to the source of what makes it good. This has the potential to be a great film, but it missed so many opportunities to capitalize on the strengths, By introducing these cameos and hero variants, it's showing us that it's a big world, but it doesn't build that world up so great. So honestly, Flash was a bit disappointing, but hopefully the new DCU will be great. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you get to see some better superhero movies.